There used to be one huge dark warehouse room, and I fell down like a giant shaft, and I landed on top of a bookcase. I'm fucking glad I did, otherwise I would be dead. My name's Jimmy Hurlston. I'm 39 years old, and I run Easey's. I run a pub in North Melbourne called the Limerick Castle, and we do all the food out of the Emerson through Easey's. Friends of mine had a publishing company, and they specialised in food and beverage books, and I used to snowboard with them all the time. And then one day I was coming back from Mount Buller with them in the car, and I was hungover and I was feeling pretty crap, and I didn't really want to go to work the next day, and I was trying to find a way to get out of it, and I was like, how about we write a book about hamburgers? And for me, it's like the perfect food delivery mechanism. You hold it in your hands, you don't need dishes, comes with vegetables, fruit, meat, grains, dairy. Like as a kid, you were taught the food pyramid. It doesn't exist anymore for whatever reason, but that was the perfect delivery mechanism for all of those things. So yeah, I fell in love with them. For me, burgers in their purest form are the best. So I wanted to keep something still pure and still simple whilst creating something that was going to be fun and maybe enough of a hype and extreme about it to win the competition. Also, it was, it's a very simple burger, and I think that it worked really well, and I was very honoured to win that because the competition was incredible. There's been tough weeks, tough months, tough years, tough days. It's been a real challenge. Easey's as a name of a venue is quite ironic, I think, in the sense that nothing has been easy, nothing at all. The building was essentially originally built to be office space. So to put a restaurant in here, kitchens, all sorts of things has been incredibly difficult. Staffing, food, creating food, dealing with customers, all these things, nothing's easy. Learning how to run a business, not easy. So yeah, there's been a lot of tough days. And a friend of ours, he was the property developer, and the trains were put on, the building was built to put the trains on top. The whole building is a graffiti building. It was built to honour graffiti. It was put to us that we could do a bar in here, and because I just finished publishing the book, it had sold, we decided we'd try and put a burger place and a bar in here. But the graffiti part of it, it's always been really important. I've been entrenched in the graffiti community for a long time, not as closely anymore. My brother very much so. My father was one of the first curators to put graffiti in the National Gallery of Victoria and in large galleries, and he was sort of the corporate expert when it came to graffiti. He advised the Melbourne City Council on Hosier Lane and all those sorts of things. So graffiti's always been a big part of my life. My first real exposure to graffiti was in the 80s, and we were in North Melbourne in the western suburbs, so you had CKA, WCA, DMA, all these old crews where graffiti was not an accepted art form. It wasn't appreciated by the masses. You look from that point to where we are now, and graffiti is arguably the largest tourist attraction in this whole city. And people who visit Hosier Lane and Federation Square, they go to see the graffiti, which is just nuts. You know, it's crazy to see the transition from, you know, we'd go and you'd knock on people's doors and beg to paint the side of their walls, and you had to pay for your own paint. Now these people are getting $250,000, $500,000 to paint a wall. It's just ridiculous. So I think there has been a huge transition and a huge change in acceptance of what graffiti is and what graffiti represents. Unless you painted one of these Hitachis while they were in service, you don't get to paint the outside of them, unless you painted a whole bunch of systems overseas. If you're a tourist and you painted a whole bunch of systems overseas, you're allowed to paint it. So yeah, we've been pretty strict on that because it's not a cash grab. The graffiti element is not a cash grab for me. I want to showcase it and showcase graffiti in its purest form. Without being able to do a tag, you don't have pieces, you don't have any of this other stuff. So I think it's transitioned and great because a lot of my friends make money and they've been able to turn graffiti into a career. There are a lot that went off and did graphic design, a lot that became tattoo artists. So yes, it's transitioned, that's a good thing. But there's still the parts of the rawness of it, the tags and going bombing and painting drains and all those things that I think need to remain, otherwise graffiti loses its personality. Graffiti loses its reason for being. I mean, Soffels is always right at the very top of people's conversations, and I think he's an incredible proponent of graffiti. he still paints trains, he still does legals, he still goes bombing, he does all of the elements and he does them all exceptionally. He's on another level to most riders in the world. I like it when people test out their skill set and see how far they can go. And I also like when people can find their own niche. You know, you've got like Nost, he found his spot. These people have gone and found their own style, found their own niche and the thing that they love most about graffiti, however that looks. So yeah, I love those guys. Unfortunately, with anything there's negatives. There's always been a heavy violence element attributed to graffiti, but that's generally within the graffiti community. It's not often that if you're outside of the graffiti community that there's any violent impacts on you. Graffiti is its own community, and I've travelled the world and through graffiti being able to have somewhere to stay or have people get me out of trouble or for whatever the case may be. So no, I don't think it necessarily has always a negative effect. In fact, I think it has quite the opposite. Unfortunately, because of the way that it's perceived and has been perceived for so long, I think that there's always a negative connotation to graffiti. I'm incredibly grateful for the City of Yarra to allow people to do graffiti because they've realised that that's what's bringing people to these suburbs, and then that translates into the businesses and local businesses, local ratepayers, all these people that contribute back to the City of Yarra. They come here to go to look at the graffiti, but then they've got to go and eat, they've got to go and have a coffee, and they've got to go shopping, they've got to do these things, so that it brings people into the community. I think in fact it probably has a positive effect. I don't paint anymore, I don't even tag. You know, I used to sit there with a piece of paper while people are talking and just do tags all the time. I don't even do that really that much anymore, but I still love it. I still do love graffiti, and I still keep an eye out for everything and try and stay on top of things. But there is a lot more people doing it too now, and it's not necessarily, it was a really tighter community back in the day, and now it's grown, and I think there's a lot of, there's lots of people doing it from all walks of life. Because when I was writing the book, I was travelling and eating burgers. I built my own Australian burger community and world burger community. I'm angry at myself for having gone to like try and make burgers bigger and stupider because that was what was receiving more likes and further attention on Instagram. However, like I said, I think when we opened Easey's, I might have had, my account hasn't grown in 8 years or whatever, but I think I might have had 30-something thousand followers, and I'd been reviewing places. So when we opened, we had a line down the street as a result of that. But I think, yeah, it's a positive thing for us. It drives customers, it gets people to talk about us, it allows us an advertising platform without having to pay for it. There's lots of things that I think social media are really good for. I get to live a good life now, and I'm super grateful for that, and I thank everyone that comes in and eats the burgers. It's not, as I said, it's not been easy. Not one part of this has been easy at all. But now it's sort of reaching a point where it's become, I think, has started to become somewhat of an institution, and people know about it and people travel. We've been lucky enough to have never paid for marketing ever in our existence, that everyone wants to come here and shoot stuff here because of its novelty factor. So the trick then was for us to try and create a food offering and a beverage offering that people wanted to stay for and people wanted to keep coming back for, as opposed to just having the tourist attraction. I say the Happy Gilmore, the golf with an arm growing out of its ass would draw a crowd, right? So trying to find a way to keep people on another level as well as just having a train carriage up here. Yeah, I forgot to mention my Bias B. He was not necessarily like prolific graffiti writer, but still painted a lot. And he was he rapped about graffiti really early on. So all of our burgers, like our special burgers, are named after lyrics from his songs or names of his songs. And Bias has always been a strong supporter of Easey, so we love Bias B.